our students use a variety of communication modes, and I think we have to be respectful of what that is.
Baby bird is.
Can you sign so Trevor can understand, please?
Oh, my bad. Baby bird is very sad.
Yes.
The use of an interpreter or an educational interpreter is becoming much more common practice today in public schools where deaf students are in inclusive settings. And there are different schools of thought in interpreting about the relationship between the regular classroom teacher, the teacher of the deaf, and the interpreter. It is our belief that the interpreter really has an integral role in the IEP team. So I would suggest that the interpreter attend the IEP meetings, because many times the interpreter is the one individual who's with the child as the child changes classes throughout the school day. We take a liberal approach to the duties of an educational interpreter. Many times an educational interpreter can serve a tutoring role, in that that person has a better idea probably of, rather than most others, of what the student's language level is, of what the student really understands, where the student has trouble in terms of vocabulary or slang expressions. I know many times in our interpreting program here at UNCG, the instructors are very familiar with slang expressions that are heard in schools. So it's very important that a deaf student know what those are, because some of those could either be advantageous to one or get one into trouble. So I think that a child who uses an interpreter has a great deal of success potential, because they're getting the information, they have access to the information, to the content of, let's say, the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, or the testing that's done.
And having the extra person in their classroom, I think sometimes some teachers feel that it's an invasion on them, that, oh no, there's another adult in this classroom, and it might make them a little nervous. But then I think most teachers kind of like having an extra set of hands or eyes in the classroom too. So I do think that it can be an asset.
The interpreter has a great role to play in formative assessment, because they can know maybe nuances of what the child is really understanding, because many times a deaf student will nod their head yes, and a teacher will think, oh, they understand what I'm saying, but what they're really doing is sort of saying, I'm sort of understanding kind of what you say, or letting them know that you're making a connection with them. So you have to be very careful about looking at the signals that a deaf student is giving you.
If the deaf child is, laughing and it's not a time to be laughing, then you be the disciplinarian to go find out what's going on. We try to take the interpreter out of that role.
A student who uses a cochlear implant is receiving information, auditory information, through the implant. First of all, with deaf students, whether they use a cochlear implant or an interpreter, always make sure that you're facing the student. Because even if a child is, let's say, uses more audition, we as hearing individuals get a lot of information from the whole facial expressions as well as the lips. I would make sure that the acoustics of the room are such that it's a relatively quiet environment. Now, I know you can't always have a classroom that's quiet if you've got a lot of students talking, but make sure that you do not give instructions while everybody's moving around. I would say pause, make sure that the child is attending to you, then give the instructions.
A student that has a cochlear implant, I think the regular or the inclusive classroom teacher, needs to make sure that that student always has the implant side to his or her speaking voice, or to the speaker, period. Asking the student to repeat the directions versus, do you understand? And that goes for all of our students, because they all will say yes. But getting that student to repeat the directions. What did I ask you to do, or what are you going to do? Because then you know if he or she understood what they're supposed to do. And I think, again, we want to educate the other students, because they want to know what is a cochlear implant or what is that, and we do need to educate them and let them know. And I calling on the student, because I just think that's very important. Give them the same opportunity as the other students and have the same expectations. And if we know a student needs accommodations, those can still be done, and nobody knows. And I think that's the beauty of a regular ed teacher who is very willing to work with all of us.
One thing that's often done with children who use either hearing aids or cochlear implants is called acoustic highlighting. And in acoustic highlighting, if a child has not understood something, this is very simplistic definition of it, but in acoustic highlighting, if a child has not understood something, the teacher can repeat it by giving greater vocal emphasis to a particular syllable in a word. That makes the student attend to that particular syllable or that particular part of the sentence, so that they're getting that, so that they're understanding that a little more clearly through their hearing aid or cochlear implant. Sometimes I think it helps to talk a little bit slower in phrase groupings, just as I'm doing now. You don't slow your speech down that much, and I did acoustic highlighting on that much, but it gives the student a little more processing time to group your words in phrase groupings. Also, probably it helps to slow down your rate of speech just a bit, as I'm doing now. So those are in general some tips for working with a child who uses a hearing aid or cochlear implant.